You're watching NFT Talk with Brick Astley.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight 101 art on exchange art, and today's guest spreads GM in the mornings, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and is a pioneer on the Solana photography scene. Goku NFC, welcome to NFT Talk, exchange art, and I really appreciate you being here today to talk about your work on all the blockchains.
Yeah, man, appreciate you having me. It's rare that I get to dive into my own work, I feel like, instead of just kind of always shining the light back on others. So appreciate the opportunity. And obviously, it's just been great to see your journey in the space and on Solana as well.
Hey, thank you for that. You're a great inspiration of mine in the space. And I've actually learned so much by being a participant in the GM show community. That was the first real Web3 community that with that and the tie-dye ninjas that I've gotten involved with that really embraced actually being there for each other and being community resources. So I really appreciate that and being able to be a part of that. For those that are meeting you for the first time, could you give a little background on yourself, how you came to Web3 and how the GM show got started, as well as what brought your photography to exchange art?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I, before Web3, pretty much all I'd ever done was work in live music and as a stage manager. Well, it didn't start as a stage manager, but just various live music jobs since I was 17. And really thought that was going to be pretty much everything, and didn't, I guess since I focused in on it since such an early age, I didn't really have but a select few amount of hobbies, right? And video games being a big part of my life as well, eventually led me to, I guess, meeting the right people, just through traveling around on tour and whatnot, led me to meet so many creative people in New York, right? So many just absolute powerhouses now, looking back at it, Steve Sweatpants, Dave Krugman, J.N. Silva, all these people who I was lucky enough to kind of watch come up. But I was just I don't want to say too late, or it wasn't the right time for me as an artist at that time. So I never really focused too heavily on my art as a craft until I found Web3 through so many of my friends. So it was kind of an interesting paradigm shift to be able to think of myself as more than the person who just builds the stage, right? Actually being someone who goes onto the stage. I had an interesting little bit when I was touring too, where I was a DJ, and I was it was another kind of thing in my head. It was playing on that, right? It's the behind the scene, being good at both, the behind the scenes and the on the stage. So it's been something I've been trying to bring into this space a lot. Is that technical ability, the ability to kind of focus on the building aspect, but then also to get up and, as to be an artist, you have to kind of perform slightly. You have to kind of sell yourself and sell what you're bringing. So kind of bringing those aspects together here in the scene has been just really cool. With the GM show, I kind of jumped in to the space through building Discords, right? It's I was saying, video games were my only thing. So I had been just on Discord for, I guess, since it launched. Ventrilo went down. I was a World of Warcraft addict. Ventrilo went down, and then I found Discord. And really that kind of changed it all for me. I learned more about so many internet communities, met so many subgroups, and when I really kind of, I don't know, something about Discord and the way that those internet communities worked really resonated with me, and never in a million years would I have figured that would become a job path, right? So I jumped on to doing that and found this space through happenstance, basically, and kind of got connected to some others that I had already known, right? I had already known Amos fairly well, but I didn't know him. We weren't that close. We'd only worked in same circles, had kind of real world close acquaintances. So it's been just an honor to be able to like reconnect with people in a deeper way. Like we always knew that we were friends, but to spend like a couple hours together every day really kind of brings you close. And it started off with no intention at all. It's still we've kind of tried to keep it that way on purpose, is to keep it pretty pure to what the message is. And that's just being a human in the space, right? It's like beyond anything, we're beyond just being artists or whatever, we're human beings. So just to be able to honor all of those different bits, right? We have days where we laugh, we cry, we dig into alpha, we talk about the artistic processes, the full gamut of the spectrum of being human.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-of-one photography on exchange art and to talk photography NFTs on Solana. Today's guests are coming off an incredible Genesis auction with the Exchange Art Photo Collective. Welcome GoPensy Prep and SJN Art. We appreciate your time here and to talk about the collective.
Thanks for having us, Brooke.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This is exciting.
So this is the first auction, first collective of any kind of photography that I've ever heard of on the Solana blockchain, let alone any other blockchains. I don't know of any other photography collectives coming together, especially with swiftness that you pulled this together. It's been kicked around the Twitter sphere so much that everybody's just been buzzing about how swift you pulled this together. Can you talk to us a little bit about the photo collective? I'll pull it up here on the screen share.
Yes, so we got placed into a photography group, a Twitter group. I don't know who started it, probably A2K or Milst. It was basically photographers that were on Exchange got placed into hey, you guys are like-minded. Here's a place for you to talk shop. And someone had mentioned the idea of doing a group show. And I was thinking like, well, this is going to be one of those situations where like, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. So, but I also am pretty busy with a lot of other projects. So kind of threw S-Jane here under the bus and was like, oh, S-Jane can be our leader. Well, I bet she would love to be the person that runs a group show. And I was kind of joking, but luckily she took it and ran with it. And that was kind of the genesis of it. Was I pulled her aside and was kind of like, hey, if you don't want to do this, let me know, I'll handle it, but it'd be cool to have some help. And luckily, it seems like we have real comparable skill sets, and it came together pretty seamlessly. So
yeah, no, it definitely worked out. Unfortunately for me, I had a teacher in high school who instilled in me this idea of like, if you think someone should do that, hey, you're someone. And so, it was a great idea. I have some experience with putting shows together and things like that. And so, I just figured I could do it. I could let somebody else do it, but, then I might be frustrated with how it comes out. And if I want to have a say in that, I got to do it, be a part of it. And so, but Dave and I did have really compatible skill sets. I think that our skills, like where I start to weaken, he's really strong. And so we were able to kind of get this really nice flow together, and, we were on the same page for most of the time, and it really worked out.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, we'll do this thing, and then we'll get the artists together and we'll put together a timeline, and we'll probably get this out in a couple months. Right. And that's what I was thinking. And we hadn't really talked about it. And Sam was like, yeah, 2 weeks, Valentine's Day weekend. That's when we're doing it. We're doing it in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. Well, all right, there's a super aggressive timeline. Let's see if we can make it work. And luckily we did. There were no problems. The only problem really was we had to, actually, no, somebody sent us a wrong wallet address, and that was it. We solved that in like 5 minutes. So seriously, no problem. It was amazing how easy the photographers made it, which is impressive because they're spread all over the planet. It's 5 different continents represented, everything from the US to Argentina to the UK to Portugal to Pakistan. and everyone was super helpful. So they made it really easy.
Yeah, no, it was a dream working with this group of people. So I do have some experience in the field, and it was a bit of an ambitious timeline, but something that I felt when I decided that was that I had been hearing and feeling a lot of hunger for some action going on. January was a really hard month in the crypto market in general. You know, we were feeling pretty low. People were kind of bummed on, you know, I haven't sold anything in a while, and like we're hungry to do something. And we have a lot of really talented people in that chat who are active. And I figured, you know, we have the momentum now. Exchange Art just dropped their auctions. And, you know, we just set a bunch of things. We gave clear deadlines. You know, if you want to participate, it's open. You know, deadline is by here. This is what up. And everybody just rose to the occasion. They were extremely professional and got everything to us, you know, right away. And it was cool.
Yeah, it was nice to have a win. We were like, I think the weekend prior, there was a couple really bad rugs, and you know, the market's been low. I think morale, generally speaking, in the space was a little low. So it was nice to have a big group win.
It was also a chance for us too to kind of come together. Like we're very active together in that group message that was mentioned. But it kind of almost feels like sometimes we're just, you know, retweeting other people's things or hyping each other up. And I kind of wanted to do something that felt a little bit more inclusive, because I think that we do have a lot of potential. And one of the great things about Web3 is we can build communities and build what we want to see. So it was a way that we could kind of bring everybody together. We have some artists who've had a lot of success in the space. We have some artists that are starting out. So we were able to present everybody on this even playing field. We all voted on a charity that we wanted to support in a way to give back, you know, and it was a way to bring everybody up at the same time.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one art on Exchange Art. Today's guest is a founding member of Soul City Radio Network and a knockout photographer. Neverland, welcome to NFT Talk, Exchange Art, and I really appreciate your time being here to talk about your work on the blockchain.
Thank you, Brick. Thank you for having me. This is really exciting. Let's dive right into it.
Yes, let's dive right in. So I know you from bouncing around in the Twitter spaces and getting up early for the Rise Before Grind show, Monday through Fridays. And it's a wonderful way to wake up and a great way to connect with others within the space. But for those that might be meeting you for the first time, can you give us a little bit of background on you as an artist and then how you found Exchange Art?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started doing photography about 5-6 years ago. Didn't really find my niche, didn't really find what it is that I like to capture. Took me a while, but then I did a portrait of my father with the first camera that I ever got. I instantly fell in love with it, realized that I like to, you know, capture human beings. I partnered up with my best friend. Now he's my best friend, but we started as a photographer and a model. And we've been working for the past 4 to 5 years, something like that. It took me like a year to find myself within that kind of art industry. I grew up in my mom is a photographer and a videographer. My dad is an actor, writer, director. So I grew up in kind of this artistic environment. And photography is just one of my pursuits. I also do music and writing, and I paint and I act and I direct as well. I found Exchange Art through Hyro, who is my co-host in the Rise Before Grind show. About like a month and a half ago, you know, I got into Twitter and Discord because I realized that is where, you know, all the NFT is happening. I didn't know what an NFT was back then, but I was curious to see where are the one-on-one artists, where is the art, like where can I find that? I logged into Twitter, created my account, kind of like looked like NFT, photography, things like that. I found Hyro. He told me all about Exchange Art. I remember when I met you on the spaces, and you really shed like a lot of light And I dropped my collection about like a week and a half ago. But yeah, and I also joined Exchange Art Discord. They helped me a lot. Like I was really nervous about like an auction that I was doing, and I was running into like technical problems. And within seconds, they replied, they helped me, got on a call with me. Pretty amazing. I really love what that platform does, and I'm really glad that I just like kind of stumbled upon it because it's fate, right? It's fate.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one photography on exchange art and to talk one-on-one NFT art. Today's guest uses real lasers, glass, and water to create stunning laser photography and art installations. Laserloo, exchange art, and I really appreciate your time being here to talk about your work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude, happy to be here. Been pumped for this for a while. Thank you.
Likewise, same here. I'm such a fan of your work. You're a multi-chain artist who just recently came over to Solana, came onto the Solana train and dropped some magnificent bombs on us. So before we get into your collection here, for anybody that's getting to meet you for the first time, can you give us a little bit of background? How did you get into laser photography? Was it the lasers or the photography first? And then what brought you to exchange art?
Dude, good question. So I am a laser hobbyist, is how I got into it. I got a urge to try to build my own lasers about 5 years ago. And so I taught myself how to do that and started building lasers. And for a while, it was like super high powered pointers, really dangerous ones, honestly. But after a while, I got more into the aspect of taking pictures. I thought they were so cool. I wanted to share with people, right? I wanted to capture this. I wanted to put it on my wall. And so I got more into the photography aspect. And as time wore on, I kind of shifted from building those high powered lasers to building more low powered lasers and collecting the glass and getting the right types of mirrors and equipment and building things so I could make these installations that I'm making now. So it all started with kind of just like a curiosity challenge if I could build a laser, because I've been into lasers for a while, but not until like you actually build one or build 15,000 of them are you like, down the rabbit hole and going at it. So the photography aspect really just kind of came naturally, just wanting to record what I'm building, what I'm seeing. So as far as what brought me to Solana, a couple different things. You, for one, showed multiple people, what you can do on this chain, how welcoming it was, how early it is, how the community was there, how fast it is, gasless. I mean, there's all these different things that go into it. So listening to artists like you going over there, artists like Paper Buddha, who also make the point of, not putting all your eggs in one basket. So while ETH is there, Tezos is there, been doing, decent on both of them. Exploring new avenues is kind of the name of the game. I mean, this is all very new to almost everybody. I am kind of tech minded, so I like the back end kind of conversations about the chains, but just getting out there, the whole reason I got into NFTs was really for the exposure. And if I can get on a different chain that has different collectors, different communities, different artists that can see it and spread the work, then it's all gravy.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one art on exchange.art and to talk one-on-one NFT art. Today's guest is a multi-chain psychedelic digital collage artist. Welcome the legend, Paper Buddha. We really appreciate your time here to talk about your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, we look forward to it. You're a legend in the space. There may be some new viewers to you. Could you give me a little bit of background? I'm actually just going to go ahead. We'll pull up. I want to go ahead and pull up here on Exchange. The description: taking LSD, making NFTs, unique one-of-ones on soul pieces in this collection, carry utility in the Paper Buddha universe. Join the Discord and enter the temple for more info. We've got the Discord up here, the Twitter, so you can make sure you have a verified Paper Buddha. Welcome. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got started as Paper Buddha. How did Paper Buddha come to be?
Yeah, man, that's a deep question. I grew up on the West Coast in psychedelic culture and Buddhism. And because of that, my nickname was always Buddha growing up. And like, all the white kids around town would just call me Buddha. And, and then I kind of like left that persona behind as I became an adult. And then I revisited that, with creating a persona for my art. And yeah, I've been a lifelong practitioner, going on 30 years as a Zen Buddhist, Westerner, so as a lay practitioner. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. And along the way, I was a drug dealer and came up very rough and had to pull myself out of kind of the throes of poverty and into a different life. Buddhism helped a lot with that. Psychedelics helped a lot with that. And during the original wave of COVID, I think a lot shifted in Web3, and I was already pretty hip to the blockchain, coming at it from the sovereign individual side and being a Bitcoiner. Got a couple of Silk Road bags laying around. So I wasn't unfamiliar with the blockchain at all. And I saw art starting to represent tokens, and that got me really interested, as somebody that was trying to kind of reinvent myself and leave, revisiting the drug dealer thing. I worked my way up through all of that into the regulated cannabis space and became an executive. Had built a lot of successful businesses in that space and was completely done with that life. And so I was looking to reinvent myself, saw what was happening in Web3, and really started to just make art, man. Just started throwing together collages. I was a DJ and a graffiti artist back in the day, when I was a kid. And so remix culture and that made a lot of sense to me. And that was collage. Collage in its essence is remix culture. And that's exactly what I'm doing with the art. I'm taking traditional Buddhist tanka and from all over the world, not just Tibetan, but also Japanese, Chinese, a lot of the Indo-Asian Buddhist traditions as well, Thailand, Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, all those places. My family is in Indonesia, so the art is me creating a melting pot of Buddhist art. Sometimes you'll see me use a Tibetan tanka with Japanese elements behind it. And, the shadows and all of my work is inspired from Indonesian shadow puppet work. So there's like this cultural fusion going on. And then I remixed that with very early 1920s and earlier sci-fi illustrations from like how we thought the future would be, retrofuturism. And so combining those elements, I'm retelling a lot of these stories and trying to create a new tradition in cyberspace around Buddhist art.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-of-one art on exchange art and to talk one-of-one NFT art. Today's guest is a legendary still life photographer from California, whose images will live forever on the blockchain. Welcome, Tony Payne, Exchange Art, and I really appreciate your time being here to talk about your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am so flattered that you would see me fit to be on the platform. I love exchange art, and just happy to be here. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. We really appreciate it. So for those that might be meeting you for the first time, can you explain a little bit your background, how you got into photography, and could you tell me what brought you to exchange art?
Oh, yes, of course. So my background, I studied video digital art. at California State University, Northridge. And along the way, I think photography is one of those things that, with photos, you shoot this and then you fall in love with this. And initially I started out with, wildlife, I still do, documenting wildlife. And if I travel, I wanted to do like culture and food and document food. And something about stills started speaking to me. In terms of exchange art, how did I stumble on exchange art? Yes. So while doing my research about Solana NFTs, because I had already started minting my work and selling my work on Ethereum on OpenSea, while doing my research about Solana NFTs, somebody had recommended Exchange. So I reached out to them, and they were very responsive, very helpful. And I was like, oh, heck yeah, I don't mind being on this platform because I like the vision, and for me, the vision is very important because, I think long term, I'm not in NFTs just for a week or 2 weeks or a year or 5 years. I'm in this for a very long time. So I felt like whatever platform I choose to put my work has to be, our goals have to align, right? And I have to know that this platform is there for the long game. So 20, 30 years from now, we're still doing this, or I'll be old as shit then, but you catch my drift. So yeah, so that was how I got into Exchange. And then I decided to mint my first Solana work on Exchange art.
Well, excellent. We're very happy to have you here on Exchange as your
Thank you.
Solana home. GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on Solana and Exchange art. Today's guest is a leader in the women's NFT space, host of Ladies Night on Twitter Spaces, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Allison Joyful, I really appreciate your time being here on Exchange Art NFT Talk to talk about your work.
Thank you so much for having me, Brick. It's great to be here with you.
Oh, no, the honor is all on this side of the screen. For those that may not know you or getting to meet you for the first time, could you give me a little bit of background on how you came to Exchange Art and what brought you to Web3?
Absolutely. I am part of the Artifacts project, which I've been working on for just about a year now. So that was really my introduction to the NFT space. I got connected to the founder, Roger Dickerman, and we hit it off. We decided to work together. And it's just been such a beautiful development, not only professionally, but also personally, for me to meet so many incredible creators, builders in the space, and to just let my mind expand on what's possible, Exchange art specifically. You were one of the biggest influencers, I would say, that opened my eyes to the platform. Also Keegan. And when I started to investigate minting my own NFTs, accessibility was a big factor for me, right? And that's really one of the major, points of the mission for NFT Ladies Night is really, making NFTs Web3 accessible for all. And so I just loved that aspect of it. And also the fact that you can search for poetry and written NFTs. I think that's one of the coolest parts of Exchange Art. It's such a great user interface, isn't it?
It is, and I love that they continually to do updates to it to improve the user interface. GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one art on Exchange Art. Today's guest, I'm super honored to have because I'm super bullish on this project, Solaris, a virtual world powered by the Solana blockchain, where you can discover, experience, curate, and share the future of Web3 communities. It's a browser-first virtual world with focus on high-density city centers and a clean user experience. The team has been building virtual worlds since 2018 and have begun building on Solana. Karen, thank you so much. I appreciate your time representing Solaris.
Of course, thanks for having me on, and it's a pleasure, honestly. I'm just happy to be able to talk more about what we're doing here and what we hope to achieve in the future.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. Tell me, what are you doing here on the Solana blockchain? I see that in your past, you guys have been working building virtual worlds since 2018. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and how we ended up with Solaris on Solana?
Of course. Okay, so we first started off as a joint venture by our two founders, Pixos and Esferis, on the Ethereum blockchain back in 2018. This started when they conceptualized Ether City, our sister project on Ethereum. Sadly, at the instance of when they were actually like dropping Ether City, the whole market collapsed like pretty much like a month after that. And this was back when 2018, when the NFTs first started coming to fruition and the interest in minds of users. But as soon as that happened, we ended up actually taking a back seat and kind of evaluating our situation, especially with building a metaverse project when it seemed like there was no demand for such things, right? Ether City became something that Esferis was working on as a part-time endeavor. And then when NFTs started really coming back into the scene back in the summer of 2021, Esferis realized that it was important to continue building his vision. And so he ended up actually seeing there being a huge opportunity of users really focused on the Solana blockchain, right? A lot of capital, a lot of developers moving into that scene. And so he decided that the best way to go about actually having a real opportunity to bring the project for longevity would be to start investing time in developing on the Solana blockchain, and hence came Solaris, the sister project to Ether City. But the whole point of Solaris and the public mint that we experienced about a month ago on Solana was to actually allow for the main team to go full time into the project. Esferis recently, as of last month, actually finished his job at one of the FANG companies as a tech lead, and ended up actually going full time into Ether Labs, working on the metaverse projects that you see now today. And so that was the whole point of our kind of transition towards Solana as well, just so that we can get more eyes on Ether Labs in general, as well as what we're trying to create, more funding behind that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. And so it's like everybody's going right. You might as well go left over here. Let's check out Solana. There's a demand. Growing one of one markets. You have, obviously we're on exchange. So we're highlighting that. And within the project roadmap, you have integration coming with exchange. You've been hitting a lot of your milestones. Despite any kind of hurdles that you might have faced. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the foresight into these kinds of updates and what you have going forward?
Yes, of course. So when we really started pushing development on Solana, we were focusing on shipping our core functionality, right? We're working on getting our MVP sent out, our minimum viable product.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on exchange art. Today's guest is a film photographer keeping film alive on the blockchain. Shoegaze, I'm so grateful to have your time here on Exchange Arts NFT Talk. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, let's get down to it. You're keeping film photography alive on the blockchain. Can you tell me what brought you to film photography and then what brought you to Exchange Art?
Yeah, sure. So I think like a lot of people, my first experience with photography in general was film when I was young. Did the whole film photography darkroom thing in high school. That was kind of around the time that digital photography was getting a little bit more accessible to people, kind of the prosumer style digital photography. I went down that path for, 5 or 6 years. And then for whatever reason, just kind of found myself burning out a little bit. So after shooting digital for a number of years, I couldn't figure out quite why I was losing interest in my photography. Came across my father's 35 millimeter camera in a closet one day, Minolta X700. Put a roll of film through it, dropped it off at the local camera shop here in Portland. Blue Moon Camera were just absolutely legends. And I'll forget kind of pulling those shots, photos, for the first time. And it felt just like, it was like Christmas, not knowing what you're going to get. So that was incredible. I since have fallen in love with that process and have kind of just been chasing it ever since. I went down the rabbit hole of building out my own darkroom in my basement, developed film, printed my own shots for 3 or 4 years. And then just kind of, started discovering different film formats, started with 35 millimeter, eventually pretty quickly actually got into 120 roll film. And for those that have never shot, medium format film, it's absolutely incredible. And the cameras that you can get now for, in my opinion, a song basically. I mean, the fact that you can get under $1,000, these top class pieces of equipment that people used to spend, take out a second mortgage on a house to pay for this stuff, like sell their car to pay for these things, Hasselblads, Mamiyas, everything. So, yeah, I feel really fortunate to have kind of found that, and I've never looked back. I sold all my digital gear, and I mean, not throwing shade on anybody shooting digital, for each their own. But for me, this is it's the process that is kind of I've fallen in love with. So,
what is the process? Is it I'm capturing this image, I don't even get to see it till I get to go to the dark room and process it? So it's a whole kind of like almost like habitual ritual to get to access these film, to access these images. What about the process speaks to you?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a little bit of all of it. I found that when I'm shooting on film, I shoot fewer shots. I think more about what I'm doing, so I'm more intentional. I tend to take better shots. So for me, if we specifically talk about what my process looks like, I have my film cameras, I load up my film, I go out and shoot, and then typically I will develop, shoot mostly black and white film. I'll develop that at my house in my darkroom. And then I just have a flatbed scanner so that I can, I scan in the negatives to my computer, and then from there I can do things like, mint to an NFT or share them on whatever media, create a larger print. If I really like seeing all.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one photography on Exchange Art and to talk photography NFTs on Solana. Today's guest is a film photographer from New York that has taken the Solana photography community by storm. Welcome, Jive. We really appreciate you being here today to talk about your photography.
Oh, thanks for having me, Brick. You're a legend in this space. I'm just grateful just to even talk to you face to face like this. Is awesome, man.
It's super cool, this Web3, where we can communicate like on the Twitter spaces, but then whether it's here on the digital meetings or like in real life events, we're able to connect in person and see each other face to face. It adds another layer to this Web3 experience, huh?
I love it. It's not just a PFP anymore. I can like put a face with the name. So
wonderful. Well, thank you. I so appreciate your time being here. You're into film photography. Can you talk to me about your background as a photographer, getting started with film photography, and maybe some of the differences between film and digital?
Well, my first film camera was one that my dad gave to me. It was an old Canon AE1. I think it was the program version. It has like a aperture priority, and it's kind of easy to shoot. So I've had that thing since like high school, middle school, just running around, just wasting film on it basically. But film was cheap back then, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But I feel like I've always just been the kid with, when you were a kid and your mom and dad had like the little film recorder and you would just like waste all their batteries on them running around. Like that was me. So I get it from my dad because he was a camera guy. So as far as I can remember, I've been shooting, man. I remember like high school, I would just shoot like all the sport events. I would just running around with the camera.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on Exchange Art. Today's guest is a hologram collage artist from Super Rare, Known Origin, Foundation, and she's got an amazing collection here on Exchange Art. Rebecca Rose, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be able to talk with you about your work on and off the blockchain.
GM, thank you so much, Brick. This is a huge honor to be involved with the show. And yeah, just really excited to talk all things NFTs with you this morning.
Hey, thank you. The honor's all here on this side of the screen. Let's kick things off. For those that might be meeting you for the first time, can you give us a little bit of background of your art, your artistic creativity before the blockchain, and then what brought you to Exchange Art?
Yeah, absolutely. So I going way back to the mid 90s. I started doing analog collage with like paper, glue, scissors, and I did that for a few years. And then the analog collage turned into digital collage, believe it or not, when I started university, and I had one of those giant like HP Dell computers. So I was doing some digital collage on that. So yeah, that was like 1998, 1999. And then in the year 2000, the digital collage transformed into sculptural collage. As you can see, collage is always like the foundation of my work, no matter which direction it goes. And so I started doing sculptural collage where like I would kind of take found objects and carve into burnable objects and organic materials and compose them together to where they could be wearable. So they were big, but yet still small, kind of like thinking about different types of sculpture. This all ties into NFTs, by the way. So like thinking about different types of sculpture and how we can redefine sculpture in that, like, it's not just an immovable stationary object, but something that can travel with its owner and affect change like on the go. And so I did that for about 18, 20 years and showed like all over the globe and had work at the Whitney Museum of American Art and won some pretty, substantial like awards and grants and residencies, and just a really amazing, huge chapter of my artist career. And then in 2015, I had noticed that there was a bit of an obstacle with my work because it had this wearable element. Like a lot of collectors wanted to try it on to help inform, their decision-making process, whether they want to go through with purchasing or collecting it. Being that they were made of like precious materials, I was a little hesitant to, send the piece, halfway across the globe, either hoping that they, follow through with collecting it or trusting them to return it back. So I saw this obstacle as an opportunity to solve. And so I was like, well, how can I emulate that trying on experience with my collage work, but virtually? And so that's when I started doing holograms of my sculptural collages, was to problem solve, this obstacle. So I started making, this was back in 2015, I started making quad split holographic MP4s of my sculptures. And, back then, I think only one NFT was, done back then, the quantum NFT in 2014. NFTs weren't on the radar for me back then. So I started, just sending out these MP4 files and, shipping like the quad split holographic pyramid. So that way they could see what the sculpture looks like in real life and shove their hand up inside and see like the holographic version of that sculptural collage on their hand before buying it. So I was doing that for a while, and then COVID hit and things just kind of went topsy-turvy. In addition to like my professional art career, I was also lead artist and manager at Walt Disney Company. So, and I did that for 18 years. And when COVID hit, like my whole department got axed. And so that was a big upheaval. And I started to really lean into my art practice more. and especially like the digital aspect of it. So kind of like rewind to the beginning, late 2020 is when I, really started to kind of like hear about NFTs more. And then in early 2021 is when, I did a lot of like personal research and started teaching myself, how to open a MetaMask wallet and joining a lot of like Clubhouse rooms early on, talking about NFTs. And I'm like, I've been doing digital versions of my artwork for so long. Like, let's incorporate this new technology in with, this facet of my career. So I started doing like going back to like my collage roots and doing more digital collage, but also keeping that quad split holographic NFT format, which I think I might be the only one doing that format, which in itself is a bit of a struggle because it's kind of like, if you're the only one doing it, it's harder to make a splash sometimes, or it's harder to, if you have a movement, it's a lot easier. But if you're, if you're like this lonely little crazy person doing something way out of left field, it's a little harder. But I'm passionate about it, and that's definitely like where my focus is. So long story short, sorry, I started minting on OpenSea in early March of last year. That moved to Foundation, that moved to Known Origin, and it was around like September of 2021 where I started hearing about Solana NFTs, and I'm like, this is really interesting. Like, it took me a while to kind of get the concept of like, the Solana ecosystem. The concept of like jumping, like crossing chain, I had already kind of like experimented with Tezos earlier last summer. So like going cross chain to me wasn't an issue. It was more like, like, is this a clean chain, or is this like a, what are we talking here? Is it as, expensive as ETH is? So I did a lot of research and started looking at the platforms, and it wasn't until December of 2021 where I found Holoplex. And so I minted 3 works there, and those works found collectors. And then I had stumbled into a Twitter space about exchange, and I'm like, wow, this sounds interesting. It's a one-of-one, like a platform dedicated just to one-of-one artists, and it's on Solana, and it and so I started minting. Like, I started minting this this giant saga, if you will, like this huge storyline of works that, each work is like a chapter in a greater storyline, and while keeping with that that holographic, digital aspect of it, like, and this is where I was talking about earlier, like redefining sculpture. So like having that quad split holographic NFT component as an airdrop companion piece to like the digital collage one-of-one is important, and something that, I'm still going to continue doing, primarily because it helps us rethink about like how digital artwork can be displayed in our IRL situations and in the physical space. And, can pixels be sculpture? Can, like in real life, can pieces of light, like when we talk about like digital art in a physical space, we're really playing with light and beams of light. Like, how can light be that sculpture, or like how can light turn sculptural? So it's kind of all like interconnected regarding like, how I started and where I am now.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one art and photography on exchange art, and to talk one-on-one NFT art in the Solana space. Today's guest is a leader and pioneer in the women's NFT space. She's a next level drone pilot and photographer, as well as a candid street photographer, and who keeps the exchange art photo collective running Welcome, SJ and Art. We really appreciate your time being here to talk about your work.
GM, I'm glad to be here.
Well, I really appreciate it. I know the schedules were kind of not working there out, but we made it happen. Appreciate your time. We had you previously on the show as part of the Exchange Art Photo Collective, but you're much more than just the leader behind the scenes on the Exchange Art Collective, keeping everything running. For those that don't know, can you tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into photography, specifically drone work, and then what brought you to Exchange Art?
All right. So I'm a photographer. I've always been kind of an art mutt. I've done, everything, drawing, painting, but always kind of gravitated towards photography. It's really just kind of a way that I understand the world, and I kind of frame things out. I grew up in a place where it was kind of boring. There was nothing going on. We called it the artificial boonies because there were a lot of rich people who paid a lot of money to make sure that it stayed all farmland. And, it's not so much fun being a teenager. So I picked up a camera, gravitated towards that, was able to kind of bring these ideas out of my brain and also capture the world I was living in a way that was interesting and beautiful and, helped me appreciate it so much more. So that's kind of how, I became a photographer. It's just something that I've always had with me. And then drone photography was something that came along later. I thought drones were really, really cool, but wasn't very interested in getting them just because of how big they were originally. But I think it was like 2015, I watched the DJI, the promo thing where they were releasing their new drone, and the CEO pulled it out of his back pocket. And I was like, oh my God, you could like take that and go hiking and like get to go and see, not have to lug a whole bunch of equipment. And a couple months later, a friend of mine actually had one and he let me use it. And it was just the most life-changing experience for me. It was like having the coolest race car or RC car you've ever played with, but also like strapping a set of wings to your DSLR. And for somebody who was always climbing up on things to like get the shot, it just completely game-changing, opened up the world to just being able to bring in this whole new perspective. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to the drone stuff. And then I found NFTs, kind of heard a little bit about it. I remember seeing like an NPR article that was like, what's an NFT, back in like January of 2021. And so it took me a while, to finally I was watching the space. I had some friends that were involved with some projects. And once I found Exchange Art, it kind of clicked for me. It was like, I've had, this body of work that I've been building for, 20 years or so, just like being able to finally have a place for it. I've always been a photographer, but I've not been a very successful photographer in selling things because I don't shoot commercially stuff, or like I never wanted to shoot. I have a lot of respect for people who can do weddings and bar mitzvahs and sweet 16s and all of that, but like it just never was my thing. And so I have this very distinct style that I kind of developed, and I like shooting things because I like to see them that way and present them that way. And NFTs kind of opened this world for me that like, oh, there are people out there who appreciate the things that I make and the things that I am creating. And like, I can just give them there's no printing, shipping, selling, like, we can work that out, but like, you just appreciate the artwork. And it's just been so amazing. And the community that I found through Exchange Art and, connecting with all these people, the fact that like the devs are so involved in the community and that everybody is just there to kind of like pump each other up. And there's not this ego battle that like comes with Web 2 and, trying to like do things for likes, but actually like exchanging, genuine conversations and asking questions and, learning from each other. Like the creative velocity of my ideas has gone up so much from being in this space. And I think it's just, really incredible.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one photography on exchange.art and to talk photography NFTs on Solana. Today's guest is also a member of Exchange Art Photo Collective and a bold photographer himself. Patrick Mulligan, welcome. We appreciate your time here and to talk about your collection.
Thanks, Brick. Appreciate it, man. I'm always excited to talk to you and everybody else about my art.
Hey, thank you so much. So we've met bumping around on Exchange Art, the photo collective DM, and then we were both a part of the photo collective with Red. You had the submission Black Cherry, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful submission, and went to Milst. So congratulations on that. Could you tell me a little bit about being a part of the collective and what that was like for you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, just excitement, right? Exciting. It was such a by the whim thing, and it just came together so beautifully. It showed me the power of this space and how we can connect with each other unbiasedly and all work together. We had so many different types of people, so many races, so many sexes. It was just a great group of people all involved and all working towards a common goal. And it really made me happy that there are people like that still left in the world, and that I found them, and we made something beautiful. So.
Welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on Exchange Art. Today's guest is a traditional and digital artist based out of Detroit, Michigan, apparel, fine art, lifestyle brand, educator of fine arts, and mural applications. Wedico Works. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Of course, man. Happy to be here.
Hey, man, you are such a legend in the space, multi-talented artist. You're a muralist, you're a painter, a lifestyle brand, and photographer. Can you tell me how this all came to be as Wedico?
I mean, Wedico was a phrase I learned reading back in my high school days. And going into college, I started writing Wedico as a graffiti artist, hitting the streets at night. And it just kind of became like my persona. I was never like that into graffiti or really blew up in that scene at all, but it was just like everybody was going out at night and had a name, and that one just kind of fit for me. So I would write that on the streets, and for a while I would do more of my wild art. I would sign at Wedico, and I would sign my more traditional paintings as my last name, which is Danley. Like it was just kind of go back and forth, and at one point in time, it just seemed natural to kind of just go all in with the Wedico brand. And it started to get really serious when I was starting to get into full-time mural art.
Can you tell me the definition of the name Wedico? You alluded to that it had a definition before.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult for me to really specifically speak on because it is coined by Native Americans. Wedico specifically comes from Korean mythology, but it's basically would describe colonization to a T as like a spiritual disease, as opposed to civilization or capitalists coming over and like raping and pillaging the land. It would out of a destruction nature. It was like more of a spiritual disease, like they were sick, and that was why they were so destructive. And that really just kind of clicked with me. It kind of changed my worldview, and I really liked that aspect. Like it was kind of this uncontrollable disease of why modern civilized humans are so destructive. And I wanted people to kind of like learn about that or look into that, and that's kind of why I started writing it all over the place.
Hey, thank you for that. That's pretty interesting history on it, and to know the history on it. You have a few series here on Exchange Art. Can you tell me how you came to Web3 and Exchange Art?
Yeah, I mean, just this past winter, I had kind of a lull in my murals. I was painting some pieces for gallery shows and trying to make ends meet. And a cousin of mine is a pretty big time developer, like really smart. He's been mining Bitcoin for years, and just I asked him, I was like, "What's going on here? Like, where should I be looking? How do I get into this NFT space?" I figured it would be super easy for me to be taken advantage of, just like browsing YouTube channels and like just kind of like shooting in the dark. And he's like, you know what, I think that you should just go straight to Solana. I had like all the research I had done was just very specific Ethereum talk, and what people and all of the peers that I look up to, like in the mural arts, and a lot of the big time artists that I admire were all on ETH, so that's just where I was looking. But he's like, no, the future Solana, like look into Solana, and that's what I did. You know, I just obviously found exchange art right away, and started looking into collectives. I do really well in like a community setting, so I looked into the
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on exchange art. Today, I'm joined by Natalie Christensen and Jim Meyer. Welcome to NFT Talk. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Hey, really appreciate your time. Both of you are really groundbreaking artists in your own right. But for those that are meeting you for the first time, could you give a little bit of background information on each of yourselves, and then how you two came together to collaborate on Altered States, Altered Scapes?
James, I think the question was just the individual artist journey before Jim and I met.
Yep.
I was not an artist. I spent 25 years as a therapist, a psychotherapist, which I loved that career. I think I was very well suited for it. And, it was very fulfilling. I was always interested, though, in art and design and fashion and arranging spaces. I never did anything professionally, but I just enjoyed it very much. In 2014, I made a decision to leave my lifelong home of Kentucky, and I moved to New Mexico. And from there, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I started making photographs of this place, which is known to be a pretty magical environment. It is that. And I don't know, I became very passionate about it. I wasn't doing it for any particular reason. I didn't have a goal in mind other than making images that I liked, and I was sharing them on Instagram. And I think social media is sort of how I developed initially as an artist. I just looked at a lot of imagery and tried to emulate styles that I particularly liked. I explored a lot of different genres of photography. I didn't have a good context for photography, though. I hadn't studied it formally. I didn't know the history of photography, but I found that I really enjoyed it and just sort of took over my life from about 2016 to now. I still work in consulting and more on the therapy end of things. That's what mostly pays the bills, but I would say I'm a full-time artist as well, and have had a lot of wonderful things happen in my life since I started making photographs, including meeting Jim and working with him on our collaboration.
Thank you for that wonderful history about you. Yeah, how did you and Jim come together?
Jim, is it okay? Do you want to take that question, or you want me to take it?
No, you can take that question if you want.
I found Jim's work on Instagram probably around 2016. At that time, he was working in a style that I would call urban minimalism, I think, which is what I was feeling like was my interest, an area that I really wanted to focus in on. And he was one of the best I had seen. And I remember following him and just looking at his images and really studying them and learning from what he was doing. We hadn't communicated at all. He wasn't following me at that point. Eventually, I'm not sure how he found my work. You weren't. He started following me. And I think it just developed from there. We just started DMing occasionally. I got sick, and I dropped out of Instagram for a while. I was gone for, I don't know, probably a month and a half because I was recovering from something. And Jim would check in with me periodically. Are you okay? How are you doing? I think our friendships are developed then. But then from there, we just talked about photographs a lot. I would send him my work, ask him what he thought. He would send me work. We would just talk about image making. And probably in 2017, he said, "Why don't we collaborate?" And I said, "Okay." I don't know what that means exactly. What are we going to do?
I like how she drops that in so casually. From my end of the thing, I was sort of I was utterly nervous at the prospect of asking Natalie to collaborate. It took me so much time to pluck up the courage to, because I had, when I discovered Natalie's work on Instagram, I was blown away with it. The form, the color, the light, all the amazing things that I strive for in my gray land that I live in. And I just couldn't understand how she lived in this place that was able to create these amazing images. So I was blown away with jealousy about her context of where she was sort of taking these images. So bizarrely, it was a really nerve-wracking thing for me to ask her to collaborate. But I did. I plucked up the courage on the basis that I was expecting her to say no. But I had seen that she had collaborated with some other artists before, and I thought, well, but they weren't photographic ones. They were there was an illustrator, I think, and a painter, and someone who sort of worked on photographs, but was more artistic with them. So I was sort of, I had no idea that she would say yes, but when she did, and she sort of just alluded just then, sort of like, okay, great, what should we do? And I was like, I don't know, but I was so sort of taken aback that she said that she would. That I sort of had to really think quite hard about what we could do. So, but yeah, so that is the meeting and the joining of us, I guess.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight 101 art on exchange art. Today's guest is Kid on the Phoenix. He's a host of the United We Art space Monday through Saturday, 7 Central. Kid, we really appreciate your time being here to talk about United We Art as well as your art on the blockchain.
Yeah, man. Good to be here. Thanks, Brick.
Hey,
you're a legend.
No, you're the legend, man.
You.
We'll be that Spider-Man just pointing back at each other, right?
the whole hour or
That's
however
it.
long this is, just back and forth.
Back and forth.
And it gets a gazillion views. Watch. And then we
it.
pour our heart and souls into the videos and think, oh man, I really nailed that one, and it gets 6 views. But the pointing, that'll get us there.
That's it. Simple. Nobody wants to hear the heart and soul. They just want the simple. You're in. Anyways, what brought you to? For those that might be meeting you for the first time, tell me a little bit about your art. What brought you to Exchange Art, and how we got to United We Art?
Yeah. So I'm 38 years old. I was a junkie for a long time. I got locked up and lost my freedom for a while and got out and just really wanted to make art. And I felt a lot of creativity in me, and I started painting and was trying to get into crypto and learn about it. And so it was just natural to learn about NFTs and kind of merge the two interests together. And yeah, I started making paintings that I didn't know if anybody was going to like them. I'd never sold any art before in my life, and started listing them, and people started buying them. So I just kept making them. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way in terms of how to go about being a professional artist and sell art and do all of that. But I think the community of Solana has embraced me through my story, I guess, and maybe my contributions to trying to uplift others enough to keep me going. And I feel like my art's, just getting better, and I'm learning more each and every day. I learn a valuable lesson the hard way. So yeah, so here I am, and been making some experimental stuff lately. Like, I'm not one of those artists where I just make the same kind of thing all the time, where it's like, I don't know, I want to keep trying different things all the time. But yeah, it's kind of, this whole journey's led me to a place where I really just love artists and have such an appreciation for artists. And so that's where United We Art came from. Like, and I'll be honest with you, it started with the dream of like having a music, because like I grew up, I would hold the tickets from festivals and just remember those moments forever, and just love going to music festivals. So I was like, I want to throw a music festival for Solana. And that's what United We Art started as, like a vision to do that. And I pitched it to a bunch of people, and everybody was like, yeah, sounds cool, man. I'm just going to go on, continue what I'm doing. And nobody really wanted to really be a part of it so much. So I just said, well, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. And just kind of building up like more and more followers. And then I realized, well, I don't want to do it myself. I want to build a team, of people that, but I'm seeking people that I feel like have the most integrity, are the most positive. I'm not interested in who's got the most followers and who can, make us look the best. It's just about like, who do I really trust in this space? And so I went and got 3D and Ghost to help out. And we brought on like Richwater and some other people that help out a lot, like Toff from Soul Town, and just a bunch of people in the community. And I think it's, people are getting a kick out of it, like learning about the artists that we feature. I mean, I know I could sit there and listen to Sleeper NFT talk for 2 hours anytime, you know what I mean? Or, we've had so many amazing artists that have been willing to come on the show. And yeah, we're trying to launch some art houses right now, where we kind of get a bunch of artists together and let them collaborate and see what they make, and go from there, and kind of build toward that festival that I always originally wanted to do. So just kind of taking the vision, like the big grandiose dream that I had, and then breaking it down in terms of, okay, how can I get there step by step, and just trying to one little thing at a time build up to where we could get to something that large. And I don't want to say too much about like who's interested in helping out, but there's a lot of people with eyes on what I'm trying to do, and hopefully they'll think it's a good thing to contribute to, and yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. But just from like a personal journey, it's been great over the last 6-7 months to see like the space evolve. And it's like when I first started, exchange wasn't even a thing, you just had to list NFTs and auction them, or and that was just how you did it. And then exchange came along and was like, okay, well, now I can play with different series. I have a lot more capabilities, and then you have several options nowadays as an NFT artist. So it's definitely made a huge change in like the way you can sell your art. And I'm fortunate, because like listing NFTs on exchange has paid my bills for the last few months and given me the opportunity to do the things that I've been able to do. So yeah, that was a long-winded rambling answer there, huh?
No, there was a lot packed in there. I asked a loaded question. Tell me about A, B, and C, and how you said the whole alphabet. So no, I asked a lot in there. And GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley, and the purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one photography on exchange art and to talk photography NFTs on Solana. Today's guest is a photographer who's turning his clients into NFTs. Welcome, Waleed Shah. We appreciate your time. Thank you for coming to talk about your work.
Thank you, Brick, for having me. This is super exciting. Never thought I'd be on an interview about NFTs.
Well, I guess this makes you a professional. Are you? This means you're gonna wag me, right?
Yeah. I've been acting. I don't make it.
Well, I really appreciate your time coming on to the show. Tell me a little bit about your background. Well, let me give a little bit of background to our viewers. I met you bumping around on the spaces, and we were all just kind of trying to find photographers, other photographers. Didn't matter who, just that we were photographers on Solana, and we found each other through the magic of Twitter Spaces. Can you give a little bit of background on your work and what you're doing with photography and how you're innovating it?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm born and raised in the UAE. I used to be a chemical engineer. Let's say I would say I'm a bit more tech savvy than most, I would say. So when I find a new technology like crypto and NFTs, I thought about how I can use it for my business more than just selling art. So in general, backstory: I transitioned from being in oil fields to a full-time photographer. That's how I make my money and feed my family. I shoot a lot of campaigns for cars and products and shiny things that make you spend your money. But on the side, I create projects and campaigns that are very personal to me, that usually have like a social message behind them.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-of-one art on exchange art and to talk one-on-one NFT art. Today's guest needs no introduction. He's the absolute legend himself, Douglas McCurdy, exchange art, and I really appreciate you being here to talk about your work.
Hey man, appreciate you having me on anytime, and I'm looking forward to chopping it up.
Most excellent. So you're just coming out. You're just coming in from the Hacker House last weekend. Can you tell me a little bit about how that was? I appreciate, I know you got the busy schedule, so I appreciate you fitting me in. But can you tell me a little bit about your Hacker House experience?
Yeah, man, no doubt. Hacker House was awesome, man. It was so cool to see my art that big and that badge, on those big screens, and while everyone was, pedal to the metal of doing their work. And I was down in the basement. It was really cool. It was like Raj and the mayor's wife of New York City were chopping it up, talking right in front of my art, and got some news that some NBA players might be coming through. So it was just a really great experience. And that's my first Hacker House I've ever been to, so it was kind of cool seeing that. And the fact that I was just like 2 stops away on the subway, or 2 transfers, it was amazing. So just got to go see my art in kind of my backyard. It was really cool.
So what's the feeling of seeing, like, is it almost cathartic getting there and seeing your art there blown up there? You've got Raj there from Solana Labs. Like, what's that feeling? Because you started somewhere, you started at some point as a novice, but now you're this legendary photographer here. What's that feeling like?
It was pretty surreal, man. That's the biggest I've seen my art blown up. And even just a couple months ago, from selling my first NFT to now, time moves so fast in this space. So it was amazing. Before I hopped on Solana, I was working a day job and doing all this stuff on the side, and then I was going to commit like a whole year to taking these basketball photos. I thought somewhere someone might like these. Never had a sale before Solana, and then we're seeing it go from selling my first NFT now to this, and now, I mean, it's remarkable, man, for real.
This space does move lightning fast, and remarkable is the right term for your rise here on Solana. So for those that may be meeting you for the first time, how did you get into photography, and what brought you to exchange art?
Yeah, totally. So I was like a musician for like 20 years prior to picking up the camera. And basically I was just kind of losing my passion for it, and it wasn't really doing it for me in terms of my creative medium anymore. So about 2 years ago, I pivoted and picked up the camera for more instantaneous form of art. But I mean, I guess looking back, I guess I've always had kind of an eye for it, even with my iPhone or shooting other things with my projects and stuff. But full on committed and put up music to the side in January 2020, got my camera, and just started shooting stuff, anything I could in the streets, or trying to arrange people to pose for me. Quickly hated that. It kind of felt like being in a band again, where people were late. I'd like coordinate this, that. So started shooting basketball rims and hoops just because it was something I liked, and then I just kind of kept going forward. And then, COVID hit, so it was a nice thing to shoot that I didn't have to rely on anybody. I could take it anywhere and do anything with just me. So that was really great. What brought me to Exchange? I started on Holoplex, and it just, it was a little too buggy for me. And Exchange launched their auctions, and I wanted to hop on and try it. And the team's been great. The platform's been great. Being able to have direct communication with the people who run it, and them actually hear you, and it's been great. I've been loving Exchange, and then the new UI that came out is fantastic.
It's definitely been a lot smoother, silky smooth. I agree everything with how Exchange has been, just being there and being able to listen. So you have, let's pull it up. I'm going to pull up your collection. Bear with me. Hoop World Volume 1. So you're tying your love of these basketball rims into photography. Tell me about this project and the ideas behind it. And I understand you're going around and replacing nets as well.
Yeah. So a big part of my art for this first auction was a portion of these sales were going to replacing nets in New York City. The winter just destroys them. Half these rims don't have nets anymore. The city doesn't really do much about it. So me and my friends are always like we gotta put some nets out. Like, this is ridiculous. So through this, we could do it a little bigger and badder. We've gone ahead and started a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So I've already put a significant amount of money from these auctions into getting that in motion, and hopefully use this NFT platform to get some donations going, and use art to make an impact in people's lives, even if it's just a kid seeing that a rim was replaced through art. Maybe he could think, what can he do with art, or he or she can do art later in their lives. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're gonna be as soon as it's still weather's still really cold and rainy out here. We don't want to put the nets up yet because it's just counterintuitive. But pretty much like next week or the week after, we're gonna start going out and step ladders and putting up nets and stuff, and hopefully get donations or grants, and really make an impact. But this collection, yeah, was about, since I picked up the camera in January 2020, me taking these basketball photos, and to be honest with you, it was like, I don't know what compelled me to take these. Like, I wasn't trying to sell them. I wasn't trying to be a photographer. I was just like making art, and I was focused on trying to find like something to make me money so I could just make art freely. Like, I really didn't want to shoot like weddings, or I didn't want to like do anything like that for photography, which is like a standard way to make money. You know what I mean? So but then I was like, yeah, but for real, it's kind of just this collection is all about my daydreams, essentially. Like a lot of places, like this first one, if you stop right there, of down a little bit, the city skyline, which is my first Genesis piece. That's just a pier that I'd walk down to break up my work day and just dream about making art. And I'd always fantasize, oh, just imagine a basketball rim on this. Imagine people playing this right here, and just making that. You know what I mean? And that was, to me, it was like the perfect Genesis piece of like, that was just kind of my dreams. And then Solana pretty much changed that. You know what I mean?
So these photoshopped basketball hoops on some of these, because these are some really wild ones. Like, is that a photoshopped basketball rim in there, or?
No, it's not. I got up and put on a step ladder and installed them with zip ties. The only thing I Photoshop out on this one is the apparatus. So I just slightly removed the zip ties on that pole. Did some color correction and stuff. I used magnets. The Central Park one, or when I was in the snowstorm, was all magnets on those poles. So the subway was zip ties. So yeah, they're all, none of them rely on Photoshop. And I honestly, I kind of now wish I did do a lot of Photoshop, because I could do even more dream world and bigger and badder. So in the beginning, it's all guerrilla style, but maybe down the road, I'll do more Photoshop dreamy stuff.
I prefer the minimalist stuff like that. And I think it's so beautiful that it's art there. It's this physical piece that you took the photo of,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's kind of the art to me, to be honest with you, is like the process of it, the setting it up, the interaction of it in the street or whatever, or just the thrill of capturing it. Like that's kind of the art more than the photo that comes of it. The photo's just capturing the moment.
So are you carrying this hoop around everywhere you go, or do you strategically think of these areas and then bring it out?
Sometimes I'll like aimlessly walk around with the rim around the city and place it and get some stuff, but I'll have like a whole day of that. Most of these shots are predetermined, and then I'll go out and capture them.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one art on Exchange Art. Today's guest spreads the morning vibes Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Hyro, welcome to NFT Talk. Exchange Art and I really appreciate your time being here today to talk about your work on the blockchain.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to a legend like yourself. And after seeing so many of these, being here is a little surreal.
It's different, huh? It's so great to put I was talking with Neverland about it, your co-host. Just like it's so great to put like the face to the profile, like because we get to connect on this other intimate level. And so I'm just very grateful for your time.
I agree, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. This time you get to see me without the smoke.
Without the smoke, yeah. Or man, I love that piece that you got up on Foresights. Man, where you got your hand right here. It's got the poem. I want to talk about it here in a bit. But before we get into all of that, for those that might be meeting you for the first time, can you talk to me about how you discovered your artistic side and give me a little bit of background on yourself and what brought you to Exchange Art?
Definitely. So I've been, ever since I was young, I've kind of lean towards the arts, and I've always thought different. All my elders thought I was an old soul, so I picked up an iPhone, iPod, the ones with the camera, the first that came out around the same time as Instagram, and I snapped my first picture, and ever since then it's been love. It's been my muse. It's been my way of expressing, and a little bit further from that point, still around the same age. I was probably like 13. There was this competition for school to write a poem. And so I wrote a poem about what was going on. We had a lot of gun violence in Puerto Rico when I was growing up, still today, but I wrote a piece about gun violence when I was probably like 13, and they read it in the intercom at school. And so that was the first time I really found the power of words. I felt it. I saw the reactions and what people would say to me after hearing the poem. And so between those two, I really found a perfect synergy to where I could express some of my thoughts in sheer visual form, and the more complex train of thoughts I could translate to words.
And so what brought you to Exchange Art? There's all these other platforms, there's all these other blockchains, but how did you get to Exchange Art and Solana?
Well, that's really funny that you bring up, because I had been in crypto as just buying and selling, trading crypto for a good while, and I had been staking out this whole NFT movement for quite some time, but never really figuring out when was the right time to jump in, not knowing where to go and not knowing what to do. And so I quit one of my jobs this past January, and in between that, I had 2 different job offers, and so I took those. But I decided, let me take a week, let me really dive in, let me see if I can learn something, learn how to get the jump start. And so I hopped in a space with you and John, and you guys talked me up about Solana, Exchange Art, and I got interested, piqued my interest. And so I dove deep, I figured it out. And a week after that, I minted my first project.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on Exchange Art. Today's guest is Michael Miller, dark artist with a pinch of insanity. His life goal is to create a universe built from his art. Mike, welcome to the show. We really appreciate your time here to talk about your work on the blockchain.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
Hey, I really appreciate it. You know, for those that don't know you, that I know you. I've been fortunate enough to get to know you through the 21 DAO and the Twitter Spaces. But for those that don't know you, can you give me a little bit of background on yourself, how you came to the Solana blockchain, and how you came to producing your art?
Sure. Well, I've been drawing since a kid, like a normal story. But about I've been drawing dark art specific probably around 2015 in the physical art world, and I opened a shop in October 2018 where I started actually trying to sell my work. So up till then, when people would ask me, I'm like, I'm not selling, but I will be selling. So it was kind of something that was off, and I think about mid-January, I decided I heard Chet Zar on the Dark Art Society podcast, and he had interviewed guests like Jamie Wales and such. And my buddy Alejandro also talked about NFTs. So I started hearing this NFT thing. I was like, what is that? And there's all this hype about it. So it's like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So I ended up coming into Tezos because it was kind of preached to me like the gas fees on ETH. There are pluses and minuses of that, but to try out on Solana or Tez, because if you make mistakes, and I was assuming I make a lot of them, that those would be the cheaper places to do it at. So I did a couple editions on Tez. I burned a lot of things, made a lot of mistakes. Then Jamie Wells. I think that's when I saw Jamie Wells and started talking to Jamie Wells. And I've known her kind of from the physical art world, coming into NFTs. And she was doing quite well on Solana, and I was able to ask her questions about it. And she helped me and my friend Tanya also try out Solana. And Tanya's on a break, but she'll be coming back. Tanya Pamala is a really good artist. So I ended up going on to Holoplex with her, and I had a couple of buyers like JS and Cliff Rogers, which kept mentioning exchange. And I was like, I keep hearing exchange from these people that are buying from me. So I need to, look into that. Why is that? And it turned out, I think because the secondary market was preferred. So I went to exchange, and I've been there. So I did a full collection of Deadlands, and it just completed, sold out. And then I had like a nice drop for the participants, which also doubled as a raffle ticket. And I just did the giveaway today, and MD Stevens won. And I'll plan to do that on my next collection that's currently going, which is Saints and Sinners.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-of-one art on exchange art. Today's guest is an educator, photographer, and Photoshop wizard. JT Liss, welcome to NFT Talk. Exchange Art and I really appreciate you being here today to talk about your work on and off the blockchain.
Thanks a lot, Brick. I appreciate you having me, bro.
The honor's all on mine. Ever since I was introduced to you via the GM show, I've just been a fan of yours, and I'm so super happy to be able to connect with you on a friendly level before this professional level, and really get to know you, because I've seen you come into the exchange art ecosystem and the Solana ecosystem and just absolutely crush it, and deservingly, after putting yourself out there on the spaces. So I'm just very excited about this.
Likewise, man.
So how did you get into photography? For those that are meeting you for the first time, can you give us a little bit on your background?
Yeah. So I basically got into photography about 14 years ago. I moved to New York City at that time, and it was just almost an explosion of this like creative energy that I couldn't deny. And so I didn't have a camera, so I took my mom's point and shoot, and just basically went out all over the city, just listening to music, just kind of started seeing things in like frames. I had to capture these. And I just took thousands and thousands of photos. It started off with like street photography. And then it got to a point where I wanted to differentiate myself in some way. Even when I was taking photos, I was always trying to manipulate the photo. I had like a Dell computer where I just had like the minimal photo editing like tools. It was just like highlights and contrast and shadows, and I would just like move them all over the place to see what I could do with the photo, just to make it look different than it originally did. And that like curiosity led to me wanting to just explore that a little further. So I remember I was just broke at a cafe in like the Upper East Side, and I discovered layering for the first time. And like that was it. When I saw that I can manipulate photos and layer them together and do all this, I mean, you see like the image in the background. This is one of my oldest like pieces, and it was just such a wow moment for me to be able to take photos and just do what I want with them. And then that evolved further to where I got into Photoshop, and then that led to, you know, thousands and thousands of hours of just exploring, making tons of mistakes, and just evolving that style to got where, you know, you see the Face Value series.
GM, welcome to NFT Talk Photography. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to highlight one-on-one photography on exchange.art and to talk photography NFTs on Solana. Today's guest is the Florida boy himself, Flying Ryan. Welcome, Ryan. We really appreciate your time here to talk about drone photography.
What's up, guys? How's it all going? Hope everyone's doing well. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Break. Appreciate you. So yeah, let's talk some drone stuff. I'm excited here. Let's start bringing more drone stuff. There's not many drone pilots on the Solana blockchain per se. There's a few of us, maybe a handful.
You and S-Jane are the two that I know off the top of my head. I think Ryan Bates also maybe another one, but you're an innovator in this space. You're starting this, you're early being a drone photographer here in the space. Can you talk to me like a little bit about how you got into drone photography?
I got into the drone photography, I would say basically on the start of my business. I'm more of an FPV drone pilot. I've been flying the FPV drones for, I think, going on 7 years, maybe 8 now. Basically how I got into the drone photography was starting my business, my above ground production business. That's how I do make my full-time source of income, is filming and you know, providing commercial content for brands, businesses. I've worked with brands like Ferrari, Nissan, Five Drink, which is a alcohol beverage for adults. It's like in a little seltzer can kind of thing, one of those sparkling things. I've worked with, you know, some museums, dance studios, big places like that. My real niche is the FPV indoor center loop drone tours is kind of my whole thing, in providing content that is shown in a very fluid, dynamic way in a one take, you know, specializing in the one take aspect, you know, coming in from outside to an inside of a location, telling a story within that location. There's been a few viral videos that have, you know, gone around. So that's kind of how I got into the drones per se. Again, I never really thought I had an eye for photography like that. And just over time, I've been, you know, just kind of messing around, throwing the DJI Mavic 2 Pro up in the air. My real thing is the hyperlapses. I'm more of a video guy, so I enjoy the hyperlapses. And that's kind of like going back into photography, because within the hyperlapses is you've got 200 to 1,000 still images that are essentially individually telling a story to get anywhere from a 5-second to a 15-second clip out of that. And with that being said, I've found that the hyperlapses I really just enjoy. So that's going to kind of be my next steerage of my next collection in the NFT space. The photography, I've kind of just got a backlog of some really cool photos, or at least that I feel is personally cool. And you know, some of these I'd really like to get printed someday, possibly, you know, or blown up, you know, and framed or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I'm just kind of glad to share it with you guys, you know?
GM, welcome to NFT Talk. I'm your host, Brick Astley. The purpose of this talk show is to talk one-on-one art on exchange art. Today's guest is absolutely crushing it in the experimental film photography scene and leading the way for photographers like me and others across the board. Jim Roll, I appreciate your time being here on NFT Talk to discuss your work on exchange art.
Thanks, Brick. It's my honor. Absolutely happy to be here.
Hey, thank you so much. So for those that might be meeting you for the first time, can you give me a little bit of background on yourself? What got you into film photography, and how'd you end up at Exchange Art?
I got into film photography actually kind of in a backwards way. I'm not like super old school, and I brought that to my art. I actually was doing video work, kind of some creative, fun videos for myself, and I started getting into the technology of of cameras and modern cameras. And then during COVID, I had gotten into a rhythm of shooting photography on this river. The river kind of became my muse. A lot happening on this particular river, and I began shooting it video, and then I started falling in love with stills, and then it just kind of went backwards. And then suddenly I started photographing it with film, and then I really just hit my stride. And then it led to film double exposures, and eventually film soup, which we'll talk about, I assume, in a minute, where I began to treat the film with foods and stuff like that. As far as coming to exchange art, it really has become my home. This is, I was on last year in 2021. I actually came into the NFT universe through Tezos and Hicket Nunk, and kind of some punk vibes going on there. And around in November, December, my friend BB Poison had started telling me about Solana, and so pretty much right at the start of the year 2022, I got onboarded onto selling on Solana, and then almost immediately I started seeing in some, like, the Nightman is a collector on Solana, and I think in his bio it said, like, ambassador for exchange. I started seeing exchange, and almost immediately upon me coming in, they brought in their auction feature, and then we were just off and running. So I've been on pretty much on exchange since, I'd say, late January, whenever they brought in their auction feature, and I haven't looked back. And there's just I love it in so many ways.
What does it mean to you to go from these different blockchains, and then you come over to exchange, and then all of a sudden it's just absolutely like world domination? You're just crushing it. Can you talk to me about the feelings of maybe some of your first sellouts?
Sure. I honestly, I was super lucky. My very first ever auction on Solana, it got bid up to about 3, and at the time Solana was worth almost $200 a coin, and so it was just really a wonderful thing. BB Poison, the Nightman, a few of the higher known characters on Solana got me just up and running, like, on the fly. Probably my greatest moment, though, where I really felt like something special was happening for me, and for which I'm really grateful, is I had like an all-time high. I forget, an anonymous bidder threw down a six Solana on a piece. And Solana at the time was worth about 150 each, so whatever that is, it's a fair amount of money. For digital photography at the time wasn't necessarily the most lucrative, or not digital, but NFT photography wasn't the most lucrative, and so that was a really big deal. And then the next day, I had sales of 10 Solana and 4.4 Solana, so that ended up being like 20 Sol in less than 24 hours, which coming from Tezos, where the coin is worth you know, right now it's worth $2, but it was that was crazy. That, you know, that was, and then I was off and running, and the it's so mysterious what catches on and what doesn't. I will say that my story and my photography is very identifiable, and I think that's, you know, really has served to I have very, you know, very identifiable work. It's high contrast, deep saturation colors. It's identifiable with me, and I think it was easy to market and for people to say that's, you know, that's a super Jimmer piece or that's a Jim Roll piece, and I think that really served me well. It stands apart. It's not necessarily better or anything, but just so it just stands apart so much. So it just made it really identifiable.
It made it your moniker. It made it so easy to identify. That's a Jim Roll. There's nobody else that's producing anything close to this. And it keeps your brand on point. And I agree. I think
Exactly.
that helps make it easier for collectors to want to buy in and say like, yeah, I can keep getting these consistent results of photography from you. On that note, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to pull up Veiled Olympia. I want to talk about that collection a little bit.
Great.
Absolutely crushing it. Always GM.